Hey everybody, welcome back, Mr. Brian and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
Hey, what's up?
After last week's apparently phenomenally popular end of the year podcast, we realized that some of you might be fiending for a little more of Breaking Down Security. And if you're a new listener, we appreciate that. You coming by to, whether you came from defensive security or what have you. We wanted to maybe go over a little bit more about maybe some of the stories we wanted to talk about on defensive security that, due to time constraints or whatever, because we went an hour and a half. It was amazing talking to Jerry and Andrew. So we wanted to get to some stories that maybe we didn't get to cover on that podcast.
Yeah, a lot of type A's, just not enough time to cover everything, right?
I'm not am I a type A?
I know.
I don't know.
No, you're not.
Wow, you're just really quick to say that I wasn't a type A after giving me the type A title. My wife is uber type A, me not so much. Maybe not so much. So, we wanted to talk about not so much news that was going on now, but memorable news from the past year, because obviously we don't do a regular news cast. So one of the items that we came up with along the lines of the retail industry was having to do with and we're going to do a little bit about PCI again. It's kind of becoming a broken record for us, I think, but we wanted to talk about whether or not security is actually running, or compliance is actually running security, or if it's ruining security, because that's all people care about.
Yeah, I think I misspelled run and I put ruin, but I think sometimes in some contexts they're the same thing.
No,
right?
That's in the show notes, because I was like, run. Okay, yeah, it's running and it's ruining, So
in some cases.
So do you have a Bob story for us, Mr. Betcher, that you could?
Yeah, I do. Well, I was driving my nephew somewhere, and he's in second grade. He was talking in the back seat, and he was going, "There's this one kid in my class. He's like really weird. When he goes to the bathroom, he takes off all his clothes."
Okay.
And that kind of got me thinking of another story that I have, which is something that happened to me. I was in a fast food restaurant with the kind with the playground that's attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this, I think he was 3 or 4-year-old boy, really excited to go play. And his mom was like, you got to finish your food. And then when he finally finished, she trots him over there to the door, opens it for him because he's so small he can't open it. And he goes in and she goes, "Okay, there's one rule. You got to take off your shoes." So then he stands there for a second and thinks, and then he proceeds to pull down his pants.
Oh.
And that got me thinking about security. And that is, are we going full Monty for our auditors when we really don't have to? And, I've spoken to... go ahead.
In what way full Monty? Are we giving them too much information, or are we exposing ourselves to... Are we exposing ourselves to, I don't know, more scrutiny by telling them everything in the closet? I mean...
I think I've seen where we do too much for the auditor and not enough for security. So we're too focused on giving all these compliance frameworks what they need, and we're not focused on the big picture. And I can give some examples as well. But I've spoken to a lot of different leaders in the community who do things differently than each other. They all do their thing really well. I think the good ones focus on what makes themselves successful and passionate about their jobs, which is anti or kind of outside the conventional wisdom if you think about it.
Yeah.
Which says, hey, if you do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and you meet these requirements for a secure infrastructure, then you should be good. Well, we found out more and more that that's not true. I mean, take Target.
Mm-hmm.
They're PCI compliant. Home Depot, they had antivirus.
Easy.
I mean, did it work for them? Of course
Easy.
not.
We know how antivirus
right?
works in this world.
Yeah, but that was what they said. Oh, we had antivirus, but this thing just bypassed it for some reason, and and then we got owned.
Well, okay. So I'm gonna preface this by saying that you and I have gone through audits previously of various types and of various frameworks.
Yes.
We have gone, and at least in my point of view, we go from it's an adversarial relationship with the auditor. They come in, they're trying to find something wrong, so we have to, be as difficult as possible. We've gotten over that. I think as a from a company point of view, or we've enlightened ourselves to understand that the auditor process doesn't have to be adversarial. To okay, let's help the auditor understand our business, understand our processes, give them the information they need. But in the end,
we're all on the same team,
we're all
that
on
kind
the
of
same,
thing.
yeah, we're here to help, that kind of thing. But in the end, one, an auditor is still somebody we want to get rid of because he's in the way. Like him or hate him, he's still here, wasting our bandwidth that we could be doing other things to, we try to drown him in paper so he'll go away so that we can go and do our job, and then he'll come back and go, okay, I need some more paper. We drown him with some more paper.
And I think there's two different sides to that. Number one is the business side. I don't care about this. I want to get this guy out of here as soon as possible so we can go on about our business and stop spending so much money trying to get this guy out of our business.
Yes.
And from the security side, well, I've got more important things to do than sift through logs or do another wireless audit or whatever have you.
Yeah, or making sure that we're following, 8.5.1 password controls, because I know we're doing that, but he wants a ton of, proof saying
examples.
That we're doing so, or examples, yes.
Yeah.
So, like him or hate him, an auditor is somebody who comes in, I've been in meetings that are about $400 an hour, because if you've got 8 people who get paid $50 an hour in a meeting, those are $400 an hour meetings times 3 hours discussing PCI, which is an expensive proposition. I mean, you're wasting real money at that point in terms of manpower, sitting in an office trying to tell a guy from one of the big four or from, a QSA that, yeah, we do this stuff, and then they want that proof after the fact in the meeting, because obviously you're not pulling that stuff during the meeting. Like them or hate them, they're not necessarily adversarial. They're there to help, but they are a hurdle that wastes time. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. It's just you're normally doing your regular job, and then you've got this person or persons coming in to add to your already full plate. And whether it be a manpower issue or whatever, there must be a way for the audit process to be as not invasive as it can be. If there was a way to set up some kind of document share with them so that you didn't always have to keep, tracking down information for them, that might be a better thing. I think that the answer to the invasiveness of an audit lies in technology, but until we get to that point, as where you work, you're gonna have that same problem with the guy coming in and being up in your business for 2 to 3 weeks, or in many cases months possibly at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of my colleagues, and in different functions, meetings, cons, that sort of thing, and a lot of the good ones do things their own way, or do things differently to secure what they have, and some might focus heavily on strong security awareness programs, and that's a great way to detect nefarious activity, or at least some sort of infiltration, where everyone in the company is constantly aware that if they see any anomalies whatsoever, they'll report it. I think people are a great intrusion detection system.
Mm-hmm.
Strange dude walking around the office they've never seen before, they'll report it. Guy sitting on a bench outside the building with a laptop, they can report that. Weird email they got from employee X, that goes to security, and then the security team will check it out, who's obviously more knowledgeable about breaches and such, and they respond appropriately.
Well, the problem is it's a silent thing. Sometimes you go, oh yeah, there's a dude on bench. Somebody should say something about that. So you get a silent alarm, especially when it's a human or something like that.
Well, I mean, with a great security awareness program, they'll be looking for things like that, and they'll know, oh, I can report this, and nobody's going to think I'm an idiot or paranoid, things like that. I think people, like I said, are a great intrusion detection system because they can see anomalies happening.
Yeah, they know what's not normal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, other colleagues might focus on, logging, key indicators of compromise.
Yeah.
They put all the logs in a centralized system, essentially grep through tons of logs and alert on anything that are out of those bounds. That's another way of doing it. It all depends on your environment. Another might attribute their success to monitoring file integrity. Yeah. They'll take hashes of files or timestamps of files that remain or should remain unchanged, or changed on rare occasions, like adding or removing users or changing permissions of certain things. Key files being changed can indicate a compromise of whatever sort. So that's another way of doing it. And then you've got network IDS can detect anything abnormal going over your network. Detection of a network scan is one way to recognize any intruders. If a device is compromised, typically the first thing a hacker does is, they do a network scan. There's probably not a bunch of juicy bits of data on the first box that they compromise, so they got to go looking. And then once they make a mistake when they're on the inside, they can get caught. You can detect data exfil. Abnormal connections can be flagged. Some examples of that would be database servers sending large emails.
Yeah.
And then abnormal east-west connection. I mean, we talked about that with Paul Coggin. With those trust relationships. Remember that?
Yep. Yeah.
Check out that cast if you didn't listen to it.
So the thing with the auditors, though, you're mentioning all these various things. They all like to come in and see those, but it seems like every year, and I've gone through, I don't know, a couple of PCI audits and I've conducted HIPAA audits. A lot of times every year it's like the finding du jour. Like, this year we're going to concentrate on auditing to make sure that all your auditing is proper, or we need to make, it really depends on, and it might depend on the auditor in particular. Each year they have a different section that they like to harp on, or depending on if you bring them back for a second year, they'll know, okay, we need to look at this year because you didn't work on that last year.
I think it depends on the time of the year, kind of like well, I won't go into that. That's bad.
So, do you think that a lot of our security topics, that are our security concepts that we do, are foreign to auditors? I mean, like honeypots or virtualizing stuff. If you get an auditor who's not familiar with those things, is it a detriment to us to have to spoon feed them how these things work and why they should be used as part of a compliance framework?
Why they should be used as part of a compliance framework? Well, I think an auditors have to live by and die by the framework itself. If you're using network IDS for detection, that's going to fit into a certain category. Mm-hmm. But that's not going to fulfill the entire breadth of the audit.
Yeah.
Okay, or the framework.
Okay, so let me ask you something. If you're doing a PCI audit, how will honeypots help you? Or how will enabling active defense measures help you with, running, if a PCI auditor comes up, well, I noticed you've got these boxes here, it says honeypot on them. What's a honeypot? Why are you using a honeypot? Why would how would you explain to an auditor how a honeypot will help them with PCI compliance?
I think I don't think it would be too hard. You just explain to them what it is and why you're putting it there, and of course, it's not going to check any boxes anywhere, right?
Yeah. See, that's my point. Auditors is looking for a box to check, or it's satisfying 2.4.1 of PCI framework, or one of the ISO standards that you're following.
Yeah, I know. It's just
testing.
that. That's kind of my point. I mean, honeypots are another great method that you mentioned of securing your infrastructure. We talked about them in our active defense in our ADHD cast.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So
right.
go check those out. A honeypot, once they're implemented, they should never be touched by anyone.
Yep.
I mean, it's a great way to detect nefarious activity. And then you can do a little recon on your current threats in the process if somebody does touch them. I mean, my point here is you need to do what you do best and focus on that. We've talked about some examples of some of our colleagues in the industry of what they do best. They do all those things,
Sure.
but each one differently. One will focus on honeypots, one will do network IDS, and one will do extensive logging and then correlate those for detection. I mean, highlight you and your team's intellectual capital. I mean, the human aspect of security, right? Sensing, judging, creating.
Mm-hmm.
Do what people do best.
So if we can show that our security is better in some places than what PCI compliance would allow, then we shouldn't have to show that kind of proof. Do you think that's
No, I don't think you're going to get around PCI or any other types of frameworks, FISMA, HIPAA. I mean, unless you can check a box, you're not going to say, well, our system is much more secure than your framework, so just pass us. That's not going to happen. They're paid to go through and make sure that you're compliant with each and every one of these points in the framework. Just because you go above and beyond the framework doesn't mean you can you can skip a few boxes and still be okay with them.
So let me ask you a question. In the long run, should companies have a compliance department, or should they have a chief compliance officer, or a director of compliance if you're a hospital, or something like that? Or should compliance be more of a junior position and put more of a highlight on the security side, being the director of security, or security info being a CISO or something? Should that have more credence than the compliance folks? Should the compliance folks answer to security? Because it seems like several places I've worked at, security is always answered to compliance, which seems backwards to me, because security is more than checking a box, as we know. So should the I hate to use the word paradigm, should the paradigm change so that compliance is a junior position to security in such a way that we consider compliance to be a base framework for security to get you to like a certain bar on the security level, whereas the security folks are supposed to be better? It'd be like being a IT system administrator, or the director of operations for an organization. Would you have do you understand what I'm trying to stay here?
Yeah, I do. And I think in some cases it is backwards, but it depends on the company and the people that are working there for the company and in charge of security. I think from a business perspective, compliance is first on the totem pole. And that's why you see a lot of companies where compliance overrules security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
it's first on the totem pole.
It's more important for them. Yeah,
it's exactly more important. It's top priority, because if they're not compliant, then they start losing money in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
and that's what drives business, is the profitability. So I don't see a paradigm shift anytime soon. I don't know, maybe with these new breaches coming around that people will take more of a focus. I don't really see compliance frameworks changing.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they're sort of a baseline that needs to be met, and I don't think they're gonna say, okay, well, you have to have malware management or something of that sort.
Yeah. Actually, I am going to disagree with that. I think that the big ones like PCI will change because they just came out with 3.0, which made very minor changes to specifically hardware devices on vendors to protect the PAWS terminals, which, as we saw in a lot of the breaches, nobody was modifying any of the PAWS terminals. Everything was all software loaded on, well, except for maybe Target, on the network. It was being used with architecture to exfil the data. I think that there's going to be more about logging, maybe more in depth than logging. But I think 3.1 is going to be out pretty soon. I would imagine if it's not within the next year or so, after they get all the postmortems from all these retailers. I think that there's going to be a lot more about logging and maybe more about doing proper security and threat analysis to make sure that people are watching and are more knowledgeable, because that's the idea about compliance frameworks. You're supposed to get a better understanding of your whole environment after an audit, knowing what your weaknesses and everything are. So I think part of the compliance framework will be doing a better, almost required threat model or threat assessment, making it a requirement instead of like, you need to do one at least once a year. But I would expect them to maybe change that to every 6 months, or as conditions change in the industry, maybe even.
I'm going to go ahead and double down and say you're wrong. I don't think compliance is going to get that much tougher, because if they could run companies out of business easily, and then it'd just make it too hard to comply. I think audits are going to get harder. Yeah. I think auditors maybe have been too easy in the past, and they're going to get tougher. And I mentioned this earlier in an earlier cast because of the lawsuit type thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the framework itself is going to change dramatically to, help prevent attacks going on today.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you, use the people you have to make your business more secure? I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at here is how do you do it? How do you know what to do? I think really you have to ask yourself one question. Do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? And that's what I'm getting at here. If you can't answer that affirmatively, then I would argue that your security program is not good enough. Mm. Not for today's threats, not for that, Sony breach, and not for what's to come. Because guys, Brian and I know a lot of really smart people, and there are some things out there that we can't talk about right now. And, if you're a manager, you need to ask that question of your team also.
Yeah, we had that in. What was that? With that Twitter from our buddy Michael Goff saying that he'd found something brand new that's not been detected yet. So that's all kinds of new. There's new firmware out there. There's new variants of not firmware. There's new malware out there. There's new variants of malware that's out there that's going to be shaking its ugly stick at you and making more of a headache. So you got to trust your people. You have to hopefully trust that your management will do the right thing, or if not, kidnap them and take them to an ISSA meeting where malware will be talked about, or an OWASP meeting or something like that where somebody will be talking about hacking or.
Right, and I think management you mentioned. I think the success of a security team comes down to the manager.
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, if you've got a great manager, then you're going to have a great team. It doesn't matter if you've got a great company or a crappy company. It all comes down to the manager. I firmly believe that. And like I said, what I'm trying to get across is do what you do best. I mean, if you're not doing that every day, do some of what you do best, then, maybe you should have a talk with management.
Yeah. Because
I don't think they're going in the right direction if that's the case.
Yeah.
You can do, we mentioned honeypots, IDS, file integrity, network security. I mean, focus on one of those things, even though it's not part of your compliance framework or a small part. That's what I'm trying to get across, because when that Sony breach happened, it was kind of a moment for me where I said, oh crap, this is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, they were completely and totally annihilated.
Did you see that news article from somebody on the inside of Sony talking about the IT breach? How they didn't even know the ramifications of the breach. They came in and just thought, oh, it was a minor thing. He comes in at 8 a.m. and he said, oh yeah, there were about a half a dozen people who had logged in and saw that now infamous screen. And they thought, oh, they'll be up in a day or so, whatever. And, it was a holiday, so it shouldn't be a big deal. And then they realized, oh, okay, well, they got into a lot more stuff. Okay, yeah, it's looking like it's going to take several weeks for us to get back up and running. They were recreating PowerPoints and databases and, information that they, were pulling piecemeal off the network. And,
and I'm sure that if there was a compliance framework that they were under, that they met those requirements. They checked all the boxes.
I'd hope so.
And it didn't help them one bit.
I would hope so, that they had some kind of compliance if it was an ISO or something like that,
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I don't think we're going to have another podcast this year, at least for breaking down security. We did our end of the year with defensive security, which was fun, and we hope to do something with Jerry and Andrew again in the future, I would imagine. Maybe we'll see him at DerbyCon and we'll do another podcast with him in person. That would be nice. So
we'll kidnap him, take him to a studio.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. So, this will be the last podcast for the year for Breaking Down Security. We do have another one in the hopper that we'll do, but we're actually going to take about 10 days off here. So it's going to be probably around January 6th or 7th, which will be our 1-year anniversary. Happy anniversary, Mr. Betcher.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So
gift is on the way, I guess.
It can be. I didn't realize we were giving gifts this year again. So we're just happy. I mean, I didn't realize that we would be this popular at the end of 1 year. I mean, we're just two dudes who aren't known in the information security world, but apparently somebody likes us, because we've got several, I would say several thousand listeners, which is quite impressive. So
we're just trying to learn along with everyone else.
Yeah. So
that's all.
Your feedback is important, because we're doing this for you. If you have feedback or something you'd like to have us do or interview, hell, we'll try to interview anybody. It's just depending on if their company will allow them. So if you've got somebody you want to hear on our podcast, let us know. We'll definitely reach out to them and see if that's a possibility. Mr. Betcher is at Betcher Pwned. I think he has about 10 followers now on Twitter.
Well, I'm not worried about that, because I think Charmin Toilet Paper has about 23,000 followers, and I don't think I'll ever get that much. So,
What does that say about somebody when toilet paper Twitter handle has more than I do? Even I've got almost 1,000. I'm closing in on 1,000. I got like 990. I'm trying to get that other 10 before the end of the year, but it's going to be rough.
See, you'll never be as good as toilet paper, though.
Oh, God.
That's my point.
Oh, what a sobering thought. Great. So the toilet paper I use is probably more popular than me. That's fantastic. All right. Well, we're at our 30 minutes that we told ourselves we were going to be stopping at. So, he's at Betcher Pwned. I'm at Brian Brake, BryanBrake. We're on Tumblr. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook fan page at www.breakingsecurity.com is our website. We're on iTunes, so please give us feedback, because that would be probably positive feedback would be about the best Christmas present I think anybody could ever get, or, Hanukkah gift, or, Festivus. I wanted to air some grievances in with Festivus coming around, but I don't have any. I'm just too happy. So, you have any grievances you'd like to air, Mr. Betcher?
No grievances. Are you kidding? I think, people ought to download those. If you like the cast, download those apps that automatically download them. Mm-hmm. That way you don't have to go and find us, and and then you can have other casts as well.
Yeah, iTunes does a pretty decent job on iDevices. I use one called Dogcatcher. It does a pretty good job when I download Defensive Sec or the Alton Brown cast, or I don't listen to Breaking Down Security because I don't want to skew the numbers. So I listen to it when I'm editing it anyway. So. Feedback would be great. We'd love the feedback on. We get some on Twitter. We have a LinkedIn page. I know. Wrap it up, Mr. Betcher. I know. We have a LinkedIn page. If you want to go searching for Breaking Down Security Podcast, we're trying to get some followers on there and post some stuff. So, happy holidays, Mr. Betcher, and happy holidays to all of our friends and listeners. And
see you in 2015. It'll be an exciting security year.
Yep.
For good or bad.
That'll be awesome. All right, for everybody here at the Breaking Down Security World Headquarters, this has been Brian and Mr. Betcher, and signing off. Have a happy holidays, everybody.
Bye-bye.